earlier, I just wanted to share just some thoughts about the whole experience that we've been through together the last couple weeks. And as I said before, we're all familiar with the expression WWJD, what would Jesus do? And I was taking a tour once of a basilica, and the tour guide said it's the wrong question. The right question is, what is Jesus doing? And so as I was driving down here today, I thought, you know what, that's what I'd like to share, is what is Jesus doing? Because it's easy to get caught up in kind of some other things and some other emotions. And we always really want to ask the Lord, what is it that you're doing? So I wanted to share with you how this is a little hard for me because it reaches the deepest core of who I am. Most of you know I'm very accustomed to teaching, but I don't often share deeply what's going on inside of me. But I thought that to share what God is doing, that's what I'd like to share with you. How what He has done in my life over these last 10 months of being here. When way back in 1998, I experienced the Lord espousing me to Himself. It's not language we normally use, but if you think about the way we speak about Christ's love for the church, it's the love of a bridegroom for a bride. And He actually desires to be in that kind of intimate relationship with each of us, because each of us is the church, even the men. And so God desires to be in a spousal relationship with each of us. Well, no one ever told me that. And so I was in the midst of a very wonderful romance with someone who danced tango. And I met dancing tango, and that romance ended, and it was absolutely crushing in my life. And what I experienced, though, was that in that pain, I experienced Christ espousing me to Himself as my bridegroom. And that was in 1998, so a long time ago, and it is what keeps me going. Because I know that even though I have been single for a very long time, I'm still espoused. I still have a bridegroom. Why is that important? Because so that was 1998. In 2014, I was taking a class on the Gospel of John. And in that class, the professor spoke about the Song of Songs, because the Song of Songs and the Gospel of John are intimately connected, because they're both considered very spousal. It's in the Gospel of John that Jesus says, can the guests fast as long as the bridegroom is among them? And there's lots of spousal imagery, and a lot of it's taken from the Song of Songs. So he was teaching on the Song of Songs, and in the Song of Songs, if you've ever read it, what happens is the bride and the bridegroom, it's the fiancé. So they are engaged and they're betrothed, and they seek each other and they come together, and then they're apart. And then they find each other, and then they're apart. And it's kind of odd. And the professor was saying that it's an image of the fact that Christ has a second espousal for us. And I just was speechless, because it never even occurred to me. Like, first of all, a first espousal is quite, what's the word? I mean, we don't ever espouse ourselves to Christ. Christ is the one who takes the initiative. So it's kind of unexpected, a first espousal. And then a second espousal, I just thought that was really odd. But I thought, okay, if that's the case, then I'm going to start praying, for Christ to espouse me to Himself a second time. And what I learned is that all we can do is dispose ourselves to Christ espousing us to Himself. So that's what I did. I just started praying, Lord, help me just to be disposed. I just make myself available to whenever you want to espouse me to yourself a second time. And that was the year that John Paul II was canonized. And so a couple months later, I went to Rome for the canonization for John Paul II. And it was a wonderful event. The day after the canonization, they have a massive celebration for the saint who's canonized. So I went to that, and I was in the midst of studying for some finals. And so I was studying for a class on gender, and I had my notebook with me. So after the Mass, I'm sitting in the middle of St. Peter's Square. There's a reason to all this detail. Okay, I'm sitting in the middle of St. Peter's Square. There's an obelisk there. And I'm reading my notes on gender, and all of a sudden I realize it's happening. Christ is espousing me to himself for a second time. And where am I? I'm in the middle of St. Peter's Square in Rome. And the sense that I had is that the first espousal was to Christ himself, and the second espousal was to his church, to his family. There I was in the center of the church. Because when you marry someone, you not only marry them, you also marry their family. And so it was like, oh, Lord, you're espousing me to your family. Well, so I kind of thought, okay, so how does this work out? Didn't really know. 9 years goes by. 8 years goes by. And the Lord brings me to St. John Vianney Catholic Church. And over the course of 9 months, I meet this wonderful family of Christ. And you might remember way back at the beginning, I took little notes and cards. I have all those notes, and I would review them to learn your names and to try to remember who you were. New people, I'd write little cards so that I could really get to know you. And after I was let go, I was hiking maybe a couple weeks later, and I realized, you are my second espousal. You are the body of Christ. You are the family of God that the Lord let me experience my second espousal through. It took 9 years for that promise to come to fruition. But that is what Jesus is doing, and I was speechless. Thank goodness I was on the hiking trail, because I really needed some time to process that. And I started almost crying because it's you. It's you. So if you ever doubt, that what God is doing, no, it can take years for it to surface. But it's why I wanted to be together. Because I want you to know that this was not just a blip in my life. This was not just 10 months and then it's in the past. You are an irreplaceable part of what God had been doing and is doing in my life. So thank you to every one of you for being my spouse for the last 9-10 months. And I just encourage you, please be spouse to each other. I might be taking on a different location and not being here, but you're not. You're not. Please love one another and carry on that spirit. So thank you. So that is what Jesus is doing, and may he continue to do it in all of you. God bless you.